Hello and welcome to the Fundamentals of Lute Playing. My name is Laudon Schuett. Today we're going to just do a short lesson on some terms that are going to be used throughout the course. I thought I would start with names of parts of the instrument. So let's take a look here. We have this large piece of wood that I think most people can see. This is the bit that most of your audience members are going to pay attention to. This is the soundboard, the top. You also hear the table. So soundboard, table, top is a common, some different terms for that. Here we have what is sometimes called a tie block or a bridge. This is just where your strings attach to the instrument on this end. They'll attach as well to the other end. Here we have the rose. And this is sort of this ornamental carving that covers the sound hole. If you're a guitar player, you may know rosette. The et is just the diminutive. Guitars used to have roses as well. And in this case, we have a full rose here with a little covering over the sound hole. The back, or the bowl of the instrument, is where we have all of these individual pieces of wood that are glued together, which is really nice. If you have a pin here, we call this the end clasp, which is kind of nice. That's where your strap, if you use a strap, your strap will attach right there. Sometimes the end clasp is big, sometimes it's small. I've got a small one there. And some lutes will actually have one on the neck block over here, so they can put a strap or a string for extra security will go on there. Just depends on the instrument. Mine doesn't have one. The strings. So here we have the strings, which is sort of the generic term. I should say there's some confusing terms that are sometimes used for the strings on the lute. I'm going to give you the official terms. So we have the chanterelle, the single string. This is just a single string. And then every string below that is two strings. And we call those courses. So we have a chanterelle, or a single string, and then we have courses going down. And the courses are intended, we'll talk about it more in a later episode, but they're intended to be played together most of the time. There are a few exceptions where you do some funny things. Very rare. So we've got our courses as we go down. Now, I'm going to warn everybody, and I am guilty of this as well, is that sometimes we just say, oh, play the second string. And what we mean is play the second course. Or sometimes we say, play the first course. And even though the first string is a chanterelle, it's a single string, we call it a course. And I think just getting used to the fact that sometimes we're a little sloppy in that terminology is a good thing. I mean, even very high-level players, professionals, people who've been playing for years will say, oh, pluck the sixth string. And what they mean is hit that sixth course and vice versa. So keep that in mind. I will almost certainly say that during these classes. I'll say string instead of course. I'll say hit the first course. So please don't get upset about that. It's very, very common. This entire complex here is called the body of the instrument. I mean, if you think of it like a human, right? You have the body, the neck, the head or headstock. And this is the neck of the instrument. And there is, sometimes it's a solid piece of wood, sometimes there's a separate piece of wood for the fingerboard. Mine has a separate piece of wood for the fingerboard. It blends really well, you may not be able to see it, but the fingerboard is just where your fingers come into contact with the strings, and they hold the string down so that you can play your notes. The strings that are tied on here we call frets. And so, for example, I might say, put your first finger in the 5th fret, and you'll do that. And that might be a little confusing. Well, I thought the strings were called the frets. We also call the space in between the frets. Now, I've heard many attempts to sort of come up with a different term for it, fret space or different things like that, but nothing has caught on. So you'll have to get used to the idea that I might say, oh, your fret needs to be tightened, and you need to tighten that string. Or please place your first finger in the 5th fret. And you know that what that means is you're going to put your finger in the space between the frets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so just getting used to context and knowing that there's a little bit at play there. Here we have the nut, which is this white piece right there. The strings go over the nut and then into the head stock or head box here. And here we have our tuning pegs. Just like a violin, a viola, a cello, we use tuning pegs. It's just simple. Friction pegs is another term you'll hear. And we're just running the string through, tying a knot, and then we use the pegs to turn and tighten the string. I will do another video, a basic video on how to tune the lute, and then later on a more advanced one, and we'll go into the details on that a little bit more. Strap, which is pretty common. When we talk about our hands, now you may be a left-handed player, and you may, if you order a lute that's left-handed and switch the other way, just keep in mind that you're going to reverse everything that I'm saying. I think most people, even if they're left-handed, still sort of play in the standard way, which is that the right hand does the plucking, and the left hand does the fretting. And so we have plucking, we have fretting, and that's there. Now, when we talk about the right hand, we generally use letters, and we take the Spanish names for them. So pulgar, indice, medio, annular, and then usually this is chico. So P, I, M, A, and you usually see C or X for the pinky, though most of the time, as you'll see, we end up keeping the pinky on the soundboard. There may be some situations where we talk about some continuo techniques where, as a lute player, you need to pretend to be a Baroque guitar player, and we throw in some raschiatos, and then we're actually using the pinky there. But most of the time, the pinky is not going to be used. It's going to be planted on the soundboard. The left hand, we're going to use numbers. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The thumb is used. We know they used it more than we do today on like classical guitar. I've seen various symbols for the thumb, things like a little half circle with a line through it. There's no consistent indicator of the left-hand thumb, so I think we'll have to look at the context if that comes up. Let me see, is there anything else? Yes, when we talk about high versus low, this is something that I think is very, very confusing for a lot of students, as well as the string numbering. When we talk about high or low, we're always talking, or we are intending to always be talking about the pitch, the actual sound. So a high note would be like, and a low note would be. So if I say, play your low G, I mean boom, not the G that's closest to the ground, which happens to be the high G, or the really high G, which is up here. So keep in mind that we go up the fingerboard because the notes get higher. So if we're going to just... And we go down the fingerboard, so going... So with that in mind, there's one other little thing, I think, and then I think we'll be covered, at least in the beginning. I may need to add some more terms as we go along, and obviously there's a million musical terms and other things that are going to come up in the course of our lessons, but this will kind of get us going. The string numbering, and very, very, very often it's so common that I teach a student and I say pluck your first string or pluck your first course, and they go and they think this is the first one. Think of it like a building and you're on the bottom floor. So this is floor 1, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 6th. You're just going up the elevator. And if you have a 7th course, 8th course, 9th, 10th, you're just going up that. So that can be really confusing because in every other context, up is the higher pitch. But with the string numbering, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we 7, 8, 9, 10. If you don't like that, I'm sorry. I didn't make it that way. It's just the hundreds of years of sort of the way things have landed. And it's good to get used to it, because if you use the wrong terminology in forums or around more experienced players, they might pick on you. I usually tell my students who have trouble getting that right, I'm like, go spend some time with your local guitar society, and you'll get sick of being picked on, and you'll learn the correct way to say it. I think if we could start from scratch and come up with a really consistent system, it would be nice, but it's just not going to be the way it is. So I hope that clears up some beginning terms for everybody, and I'll look forward to seeing you all in the next lesson. Have a wonderful day.